Hey, this is Dr. Allen. We're going to talk about muscle tissue now. This is for AP Lab. So you're going to find that we're going to talk about three muscles types. The first one we're going to talk about is called skeletal muscle. That is the muscle that most people are familiar with because it's what you often see and use and you're conscious and aware of most every day of your life. But when we're looking at skeletal muscle as a tissue, let's think about a few things. Now, first is this diagram here on the right. This is a picture of a microscopic view of skeletal muscle. You'll see a few characteristics of this, and first is that it's striated. Striated means there's stripes. See how it looks all striped like that? Those are called striations. We're going to learn soon that these striations actually have a very particular purpose when it comes to contracting the muscle or shortening the fibers of the muscles so that your body can do certain activities. Like, for example, this muscle right here, this tricep muscle. As the muscle contracts, the arm itself straightens out or it extends. Okay, how does that happen? Well, at the microscopic level, these striations here will shorten and will make the muscle do its activity. We'll do a lot of in-depth discussion about that shortening process when we get to the muscular portion of this course. But for now, I just want you to know that skeletal muscle is striated. There are multiple nuclei per cell, right? So you can kind of see here, this is the cell and it's kind of a very long fiber, right? So it's this little fibrous kind of thing right here. It's not like your typical cell that just kind of has this little round, um, like on the epithelial tissue where you have like a cell with a nucleus in the middle. These are multinucleated, so it's a long fiber, several nuclei. They're kind of right here along the side of the muscle. And the other thing to note about skeletal muscle is that it's voluntary, meaning that you can actively control it. That's not going to be the case for the other muscle types we're going to talk about in this lesson. But so striated muscle, multinucleated, and voluntary. That means you have skeletal muscle. And just take a look at the appearance right here. Know this how this looks. Another thing I wanted to mention is this thing called myocyte. Whenever you see the word cyte, we talked about that in the last lab, that means cell, like cytology is a study of cells. Whenever you see the myo, M-Y-O, that means muscle. So a myocyte is a muscle cell. Okay, next slide. Here's a close-up image of the skeletal muscle. So here's another microscopic image here, the striations, the multiple nuclei here. But here's the kind of the comparison diagrammatically. Okay, so you have this picture up here on the top. You see the little bands, they call it an A band and an I band. But the striations are here, the nuclei here off the side. Three-dimensionally, this is what it kind of would look like here. So this is a muscle fiber. A muscle fiber is another way of saying muscle cell, but a muscle fiber is this long thing. You see the nuclei is kind of all scattered about. This is that cell membrane. It's called a sarcolemma. And within this muscle fiber, you have these little fibrous things, and they're called myofibrils. Remember, myo means muscle. So these little myofibrils are inside of there. There's mitochondria inside there. Remember, it makes all that ATP for muscle to work. And as you zoom in on this myofibril, you can see that there's alternating bands with different zones and different types of filaments. We'll get into this part of this muscle fiber in the muscular system unit. But for now, know that these striations here are a result of this at the microscopic level. Okay. All right. Next up is cardiac muscle. So cardiac muscle is also striated. So as you look here at this image here, you can see the striations or the stripes. With cardiac muscle though, it's not multinucleated. There's only one nucleus per cell. You can kind of see this here. This one cell has this little dark edge on either side of it. and those are little connectors between the cardiac muscle cells. They're called intercalated discs. Okay, and that helps spread the action potential that causes that cardiac muscle to contract. Um, what I want you to do is, for this particular unit, is just know that this cardiac muscle is striated. Look at these little lines here, these dark lines. These are the intercalated discs. So this is one cell, this is another cell, and that's the joiner between the two. Notice that it's also branching. See how these fibers branch here in this little image. So this is kind of that branching effect. And know that it's involuntary. In other words, you can't physically or mentally control your heartbeat. Maybe you can slow it down a little bit through. Maybe you can slow it down a little bit for through deep breathing exercises, but you can't actually control your heartbeat the way that you would control, say, flexion of your arm. Here's another view of cardiac muscle. You see the striations very nicely. You see it's kind of this branching effect. Remember that skeletal muscle was all just straight lines, but this is more of a branching effect. They are one nucleus per cell, and then the intercalated discs between them. So if you see this image right here, you'll know that this is cardiac muscle. And now smooth muscle. So smooth muscle, one of the things about it is there are no striations. That's why it's kind of called smooth, right? There's no stripes, no striations. You can see that it's kind of this spindly shape. Here's kind of a diagram of it here. There is one nucleus per cell. And so if you look at this image right here, you can take a look at this and say, oh, this is smooth muscle. And this is just more of a pattern recognition thing. So you notice there's no striations, there's no branches. They all kind of flow together like this. And the final thing about smooth muscle is that it's involuntary. So you have no control over smooth muscle as well. Where is smooth muscle? Well, it's in a lot of the involuntary areas of your body, for example, your intestines, certain areas of your body like blood vessels where you don't necessarily have to physically control those, but when the smooth muscle contracts, what it'll do is it'll constrict things, it'll kind of move things along a tube like in your intestines, right? So that's the image of smooth muscle. Here's more a diagrammatic representation of this. Okay, so up here, this is the microscopic view. You can kind of see even in this little section right here, it's a little spindly shape of the individual muscle cells. But here is a sample from the small intestine, okay? So this is not microscopic, this is more of a gross view. And you can see here that here this outer layer of the small intestine is that visceral peritoneum, that serosa, that epithelial layer that's here on the outside. As you go deeper inside there, you see there's two different layers of smooth muscle cells. One is called longitudinal, meaning that it goes the lengthwise direction. The other one is called the circular layer, and it goes in this direction around. That's the inner layer. And that's kind of, if you were to do a cross-section or a slide of it, this longitudinal layer, you'd just see the cross-section of the cells, and this is the length of the cells here in the circular layer. Okay, and then on the inside of that small intestine is that special epithelium we had talked about called mucosa. So this is lining the inside of the small intestine. So the wall of the small intestine is composed of a lot of this smooth muscle. And these are the involuntary contractions that help to propel the food from your stomach as it goes all the way through the digestive process, and then it gets into the large intestine, continues to propel all the way on its way out. So here's a summary slide here, just kind of comparing the three, right? It has body location, cell shape, and some other descriptors. So skeletal muscle, like in your arm, has the striations, multinucleated, nice straight cells. It's voluntary. Cardiac muscle, It's branching, still striated, but it has one nucleus per cell and it has these little intercalated discs. And then smooth muscle, no striations, also involuntary, and it's usually in things like your intestines. All right, that concludes our lesson on muscle tissue. We'll see you next time.